Martin is, he's very special. I mean, you just look at the oeuvre of his work. I mean, he's, over the past 50 years, and the eclectic range of stuff he's done, you know, he's one of the few directors, and I've worked with some very, very good directors. He knows the acting process. He's an actor himself. We've seen him in films and stuff, little cameos, you know, and he's bloody good, you know. He's very aware of the acting process, and he creates the environment for you to do your best work. Ferrera lasted 5 hours. I think he just couldn't take any more pain, no matter how brilliant a Jesuit he was. I think it could be as basic as that, you know. And if he was presented with the same scenario as Andrew's character Rodrigo was, you know, there's these other Christians hanging. If you apostatize, you will save these people's lives. And what is the act of Christianity, you know? You know, doing a selfless act, step on the image of Christ to save these lives. And I think that was part of it too with Ferrera, that Jesus would have done that. And that's the ultimate act of faith, you know, that you would step on the image of Christ, of God, to save human lives, you know. He's an extraordinary young actor. His commitment to this part and to the film and to Martin and was quite extraordinary. He's a very, very special man. I recently saw Hacksaw Ridge too, and he's, oh my God, you know, 2 films about faith. My gosh, he's very, very special, I think, Andrew. Yeah. I'd worked with a couple of Japanese actors before in previous films, and I was very struck by their, not just their dignity, but their patience and their stillness. They've kind of got this Zen Buddhist approach that's very, very, makes me a little bit jealous, you know. They could have stood there for hours and hours, you know, absorbing what Martin was saying and just, you know, take after take after take, and totally committed to the moment, you know. The lovely actor Issei, who played Inoue, Martin had asked me to look at a Russian film called The Sun, where he plays Emperor Hirohito, and it's a masterclass in film acting, you know. So I was acting with him, and I was very, very aware of his presence and his aura, you know. The film does have many layers. It does have a kind of an action-adventure thing, which hopefully will keep audiences entertained. But it does have a deeper level of a spiritual quest for faith, for God. Is there a God? Does he or she speak? Is he going to speak to one of the actors, one of the Jesuits? The film's called Silence. And this faith in our story with these 2 Jesuits, played by Andrew and Adam, is they're put through the treadmill of doubt and fear and privations of hunger and destitution and cold and always asking is are you there, you know? And that can go as deep as we as the audience want to see it as, want to experience it. You know, it is the question we all ask, you know, no matter if you're a believer in a religious faith or not, you know. Why are we here? What is it about?
Silence. Dal 12 gennaio al cinema.
Marty has been wanting to make it for 30 years, and I think, I'm really grateful it took him that long, even though it must have been very painful for him, because it means that I was the person that ultimately got to go on the journey with him. I had heard that he wanted to make the film, turn this book into a film, and I got sent the script, and I was asked if I would audition and meet with him, and I hadn't had an audition for a while, which was really great that he wanted to audition for the role. It was heartening and reassuring because it meant that he was going to do his due diligence and make sure that this was the right fit. I think a bunch of us, or there was a bunch of us that ended up reading for him, and it was in his office in the city, and we read a bunch of scenes, and he was very lighthearted and fun and jovial about it. We were doing these very intense scenes, and a really great actor was reading off camera, Michael Stuhlbarg, who's just this great actor, and it was about 2 or 3 hours. We read a bunch of scenes and talked and with the casting director, and it was a really just a wonderful process. And then he asked me if I wanted to do it, and I said, well, I mean, yes. there's no other option. You know, it's a passion project, and it's you don't often get to tell these kinds of stories in cinema. You know, Marty and I would talk extensively. It was mostly about the spiritual themes and about the journey of the character and where he is when and what gets revealed to him when and what he's struggling with. And it became very personal. You know, we would share our own stories in how we related. And I think he was looking for that in the actor that eventually played Father Rodriguez. He wanted someone that struggled with these questions. He wanted someone that cared about similar things, where our kind of plasticity matched up, I suppose. Silence is the story of 2 Jesuit priests in the 1600s from Portugal who are on a mission in Japan to find their old mentor and teacher, Father Ferreira, played by Liam Neeson. And it's a double mission. One is to find their mentor, and the other is to keep the flame of Christianity burning and alight in this country that has outlawed Christianity. The locations were epic unto themselves, the nature the characters find themselves in, and then Dante Ferretti, the production designer, built Macau harbor in the middle of Taiwan. He built Japanese marketplaces of 1600s. You know, the detail and the research that went into all these things is just unbelievable. And then Rodrigo just shot it so beautifully, Rodrigo Prieto. And yeah, physically it was very demanding. First of all, Adam and myself and Liam, we had to lose a lot of weight to be starving priests in an outlawed Christian Japan. So that was a big physical toll. That's the genius of this film, is that everyone's right and everyone's wrong, and there's no way, there's no one answer, there's no one way, and it's again the how do we live together and how do we fight without killing each other. It's like any relationship, it's like any marriage, it's like any brotherhood or sibling rivalry. It's how do we do this without the destruction of innocent lives, and how do you let me be me and I let you be you, of a film. And it's dealing with themes that are deeply human, and it's unlike anything I think I've ever seen on a cinema screen. I think it's a landmark film for Scorsese, and I think he's transcended himself with this film. And I have never seen a film like this.
Silence, dal 12 gennaio al cinema.
My interest in all things Catholic, those elements have showed up in my other films, Mean Streets, Taxi Driver to a certain extent, Raging Bull certainly, and many pictures. But I think I approached it from different ways. The idea of the tenets or the beliefs of Christianity in the everyday life that we lead, you know. And so ultimately, I was given the Book of Silence in 1988. It was in August, I believe, or September, by Archbishop Paul Moore, who was the Archbishop of Episcopal Archbishop of New York, St. John the Divine. He was a supporter of the film I had just made, Last Temptation of Christ, after seeing the film. And so he talked to us about a serious discussion about those elements in that particular film, and those arguments, those concepts, those questions. And then he said, I have a book for you that you should take a look at. It takes the very essence of what you were trying for in your other films and goes deeper. The issue in this particular story, and that should apply to everything we know of today too, and that is the cultural differences, right? How do they deal with the cultural differences of Japan as opposed to Western Europe in the 17th century? They have to understand the culture that they're bringing this gospel, this good news to. They have to understand what the values of the culture are. Rodriguez is somebody who, in a sense, gives up his faith to gain his faith, and that's the paradox. And when we were getting ready to make the picture, I realized that I was trying to create something that had been with me for many years since I was a teenager and when I first wanted to make movies. And as I said earlier, I'd studied for the priesthood, didn't make it. Realized early on that it wasn't my calling. It's certainly a vocation, but it wasn't mine. It was the calling of someone I had admired, a priest, a neighborhood priest who taught us a lot. I wanted to be like him, but that's not the reason to be a priest. And I had this other calling, I guess, and it was making movies. And I had an idea to make a picture about a priest, actually, many years ago. A priest who had the calling, but who needed to take that extra step of getting past his ego and his spiritual pride, because it's the parishioners that have to come first, always. And I realized that this was the picture I was making, in a sense, while I was making it, really, while I was shooting it. Nine films I've done with Dante and his wife Francesca, and he's a genius at what he does. He was also able to create something from nothing, really. If he's given the ability to create something bigger and financially given the support, that's something else. But he can also come up with something that we need with that very special eye that he has and sense of design, which really also works out to be something that's accurate and for the period, So we just know each other that way. I've always admired his work on all the other films he's made. And he went through a lot of hardships to make this picture. But he came through. He did some beautiful work.
Silence, dal 12 gennaio al cinema.
I think of Gruppe very much as St. Peter, who's like full of doubt and doesn't hide it at all, and is very openly kind of complaining and tired, and which I love. But when he gets tested, he rises to the occasion, where it might be the opposite for Andrew's character, where he starts very committed to, they're both very committed, but their faith is very much challenged in a way where they start putting themselves within this bigger picture than they can't see their role in it anymore, or how useless it is. It's great working with Martin Scorsese, because I grew up watching his movies, and I think he's the tip of the pyramid as far as directors alive today. It was great working with Andrew because we were starving together, and there was nobody else. One of my favorite moments was that we were on a, not just because we were starving together, he's a great actor, and he's my age, so I hate him. But one of my favorite moments was we were on a boat, and they had the front of the boat tied to a big rope that they pushed out into the water, and we were shooting this scene where they're pulling us into and onto shore. The entire crew and the rest of the cast and the extras are all kind of on the shore, and they called lunch break when we'd done this a couple times, and so it was just we're like, oh no, that's fine. We don't want to come in. We'll just stay out here in the boat. In retrospect, I think of them Garupe and Rodriguez as heroes, but at the time, I wasn't thinking what they were doing was heroic, I guess, necessarily. They just made a commitment, and they were doing that. I don't think people who are...
Siles, dal 12 gennaio al cinema.